And welcome to Casey Cares, the voice of Kansas City nonprofits. We share the stories of local nonprofits and the individuals who drive them. At Casey Cares, we connect the nonprofit and business sectors to enhance the quality of life in Kansas City for both its residents and its visitors. This Casey Cares episode is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. One of the most important aspects of operating a nonprofit is making sure that the public knows what you're about, from your mission to your accomplishments that meet the mission and everything in between. Well, the public plays a key role in the organization's faith. For this Casey Cares Ask the Expert episode on public relations, we turn to one of the best in the business, Eileen Weir. During her amazing career thus far, Eileen has served as the mayor of Independence, was a member of the Kansas City Chiefs PR team, and she helped to raise $53 million for the renovation of the Truman Presidential Library. She has served on numerous boards, including the Mid-America Regional Council, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and as the interim leader of the Mid-America LGBT Chamber of Commerce. She has so many credits that we called on her to share some advice on public relations for nonprofits. So here we go. Eileen, welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be back.
All right. So why don't we start with the basics?
Okay.
What is PR and what isn't PR?
Well, people like to put PR and marketing together, and a lot of their functions certainly complement one another, or they're supportive of one another. But I always feel like PR deserves its own space in the marketing world. Marketing tends to include branding, sales, winning work, those types of things, advertising, paid advertising, whereas PR I always just classify as earned media, earned publicity. And it certainly depends upon branding, brand messaging, but it's really dependent on relationships. The key part to it, I really feel that sometimes people miss, is those key relationships. And in this world where everything is so digital, there's so many more platforms than there were back when I was working in the PR department at the Kansas City Chiefs, where we were primarily, almost exclusively, I would say, reliant on the traditional print media, radio, television. Interesting fact, the Kansas City Chiefs was the very first NFL team to have a website. So we,
Wow.
When I was there, we were the first NFL team to launch our website, and we did that. That tells you how long ago it was, but or how quickly things have changed.
Well, just how quickly. We'll go with that.
Relatively short period of time. But the reason that we embraced that technology, and it was led by our PR department, and then obviously inclusive of our marketing department as well, was it was a way to directly speak to our fans without having the filter of the media between the team and our audience. So while PR and marketing tend to be side by side, sometimes they get put together when they really shouldn't be, because people who are trained and skilled in marketing aren't necessarily the same people who are trained and skilled in public relations. So it's really about who identifying in conjunction with your marketing team, if you have one, who is your audience? Who are you talking to? What is your message? What are you trying to say? What is the outcome that you want? And how do you build those relationships to ensure that when you have a story to tell, that you have a way to get that story told? Or on the reverse side, when a story is being told about you, that you have the relationships to ensure that that story is true and accurate.
And boy, is that an issue today. I think the more tools that are out there, across the way, how do we deal with that messaging and making sure it's consistent? I'm so glad that you shared that PR and marketing may have a marriage, but they are two individuals coming to the marriage, which is really great. And wow, thanks for the tidbit on that the Chiefs were another first, the first
Another
to have
first.
a website.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. All right. So we're in this nonprofit arena of which you're very familiar. What are some of the greatest challenges in getting nonprofits to realize that, yes, you do need public relations?
Well, I was, in addition to, whenever you read my resume, I get tired. So, but one of the careers that I have had and honestly continue to have is I do consulting. My business, Impress KC, I started it as a PR firm. Now I have a couple of clients. I do work, I work full-time for Centric doing their public sector business development and the construction trades and construction services. I do maintain a few clients with Impress KC, and it's really more focused now on community and economic development. But when I was doing PR consulting, primarily my clients were nonprofit. The Chiefs Charity Game was one of my clients. So I did the Chiefs Charity Game for Children's Center for the Visually Impaired, and then with Big Brothers Big Sisters. The fact that nonprofits need money is not a story, right? I mean, sometimes it's not the same as doing an appeal for support. And sometimes, I've certainly met with clients, interviewed clients, they've interviewed me, and they need fundraising, which PR can certainly support your development and fundraising effort. But putting out a press release saying we need money is not a story. So understanding how to use the free of charge media to tell your story. But that takes a strategy and creating and knowing how to create news. So I always encourage nonprofits. There's certainly ways to get the attention of the press and thereby the public, but you really got to create your story and create something that's newsworthy. Every reporter, every television reporter is looking for news every single day. So, we are blessed beyond belief in Kansas City with a number of online, talk shows, radio talk shows, podcasts. There's endless opportunities to get on the airwaves, but you got to have a compelling story to tell.
Well, there's two channels I want to go with that. Let's go story first, and then I want to come back to what's out there and how do you find it. Storytelling. Half of the nonprofits in our Kansas City area, which are knocking at the door of 10,000 if you include church, synagogue, mosque, and they have legitimate stories as well. But a lot of them are very small. One person, two people, three people. How do you go about figuring out what story to tell? Pardon me, what story to tell, and then how to tell it?
I start with people care about people. They don't care about institutions or organizations. So when you can tell a story about how a person is impacted by what you do, that is always very compelling. To me, I mean, that's where I always would begin, is identify that. For some nonprofits, for many nonprofits, that's a big challenge, because the people that they are impact are protected. They're children, they're victims of violence, they're victims of neglect, abuse, homeless, many different things that precludes the nonprofit from being able to put their people that they serve in the public eye. their job and their responsibility is to protect those people. But when possible, I say, people they want to hear about other people. They don't want to hear about an organization. And there's lots of ways to do that. And also, if you can't talk about the people that you serve, talking about how you serve them, the events, those are always popular. I mean, having a gala isn't, that's not something that the press is going to cover. But if you have a event that happens in the public realm, like like the CCBI trolley run that always gets, traditionally a lot of press. Parade of Hearts, which is is also something that I'm involved with, that happens in the public realm. It has a very compelling story to it. It has a very direct impact on individuals in different industries, as well as the artists who participate in it. So it's finding those personal stories that people will connect with.
In addition to what you do, which people can go and find Parade of Hearts and CCBI, is there anything out there that you see, whether it's local or beyond, that's done just a great job of storytelling? It's cheat, steal, and copy in the best way. But are there things that have stood out to you from kind of the nonprofit or even the profit community that's been a great kind of thing for people to kind of model after?
Well, one that immediately comes to mind, and I don't know if people can model it, is Children's Mercy Hospital. They've the celebrity, attraction that they have been able to generate through, years of building those relationships. What they do with Big Slick and the money that they raise. How they just had Red Hot Nights in February, and they raise an astronomical amount of money. And that's years and years and years of building those relationships and building that brand. And the results, and the results of what they do. Having a pediatric hospital and all the accompanying pediatric services here in our community is, very, very unique. And they've done a tremendous job of sharing that story, the impact that they have on children and families, not just from, right here in Kansas City, but really from across the Midwest, placing their name on the Sporting KC park. Very strategic, difficult decision, I would say. For a nonprofit, that's not an easy decision to go into those types of licensing type agreements. But Children's Mercy is one that immediately stands out to me as a homegrown Kansas City hospital, charitable nonprofit. But I don't know that it's something that people can model in terms of getting, the celebrity presence that they have been able to get with their events. Also, I would say they're always doing something. It's just there's a and this is something that can be replicated and people should strive to replicate. It's just a drumbeat. There's a cadence to it. It's just there's something, kind of happening all the time without it happening so often that you're just like, okay, enough already, So that's one that absolutely, I think, in my mind, tops the list of how they've just done exceptionally well. Obviously, they have a large organization. They have a big resource development team that helps that. They have a lot of tremendous partners with the Royals and, on and on and on. But I would say they're, in my mind, the gold standard, and also the gold standard in providing care to our community.
We're talking with Eileen Weir. She's our Ask the Expert. She is the queen of PR, branding, and so much more. I think that You're right. Big Slick is tremendous, and we all can't have Jason Sudeikis, Paul Rudd, and Rob Riggle. But I think you kind of raise something that nonprofits and even smaller nonprofits can think about is you can find a celebrity that maybe isn't at that level and creating that story or sharing that story in the one on a national scope that I think of, and it wasn't necessarily a person, but it started with a person. Remember the Alzheimer ice bucket that went viral on social media? So I think, encouraging our nonprofit audiences, be creative in how you tell the story.
And we do have a lot of local celebrities. I mean, obviously our professional athletes come to mind, and not everybody's going to get Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce, or Salvador Perez or Bobby Wood Jr. But, we do have professional athletes in our community. And we live in a community that is exceptionally philanthropic. I mean, that's for sure. And people want to give and they want to give back. I mean, I always, I'm kind of famous for sitting around the table and we set in people, whether it's fundraising, which PR in the nonprofit world does,
absolutely,
kind of generally feeds into some sort of resource development function along with messaging and marketing and branding. And, we've all sat there and it's like, get out the list. Who should we ask? And, somebody will say Oprah. And I'm like, great. You know her? I mean, like, and I am, always the first to say, listen, let's just not throw out, names of everybody that we can think of who gives money. I mean, or is famous. You have to have a relationship. You're not going to be successful unless there is a relationship or there's an opportunity to create that relationship.
All right, so I'm going to squirrel back to the other thing we talked about a few minutes ago. From the time you were at the Chiefs just a hot minute ago, website and that all thing to now and all the channels. So how does someone who's tasked with doing the PR for their organization, big or small, find out all the channels and all the emails and all the hashtags? How do you go about doing that? Is there somewhere we can all go to this magical list?
No, I mean, unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, if there's a magical list, I don't have it. So for me, if you're on it and you're seeing it, then you should be, researching that. And we have our communities, it's not that hard to get to people. I mean, it may take a little bit of persistence, but if you're on LinkedIn or Substack, every single day you're seeing podcasts, right? I mean, you're seeing people who are doing podcasts about businesses, about business leaders, about nonprofits, about, whatever your cause is, if it's if it's homelessness, if it's, hunger, I mean, whatever it is, there's always something going on. And, you just have to have you don't wait for somebody to give you an introduction. Just say, I'd like to meet you. I have people in the nonprofit world that I've met at the most random, unexpected places. And I just go up to them and said, you know what, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. Can we get coffee or can I come by? They always love to show you their place. So if you say, can I come by and show you around or have somebody on your staff show me around? So it's really just about first and foremost asking and doing your research and knowing what they do and how they do it and all of those types of things. Look at their boards. If you know somebody on their board who can make an introduction, that's a great way to do it. And I always whether it's in professionally or volunteering or whatever it is. I mean, almost every single time I meet with anybody, whether meeting them for the first time or there's somebody that I know well, I ask, who else should I talk to? And using your network to say, is there anybody else that you think I should speak to? And if they tell you, I mean, they may come up with a name, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I know that person. I didn't even think of them. Or if you don't know them, just say, would you introduce me to them? Um, and just continue to build that network and those relationships.
That key word, networking, who you know, well, how do you get to them first? I wonder sometimes, again, going back to the 50% of the nonprofits that are smaller, one issue is, can I reach out? I think you just answered that for us. And
Yes.
Absolutely reach out. What's the worst you're going to get is a no, or the worst thing ever is silence.
Silence, yes.
The silence is not golden.
And when to know when the silence is like deafening. So people are busy. It might take a minute, but yeah, at some point you're like, okay, this path is not working. I need to try something else. Yeah.
What about the idea of mentorship for PR, either people or for your organization that's just really trying to focus now on that? How would you go about doing that? Are there people out there who say, yeah, I've been there a time or two, I'll help?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we live in a really collaborative community, and there's, when you start going down this path and you start sort of researching, well, who are people who are firms who do this or individuals who do it as consulting. I bet you everybody knows somebody, and your boards on your nonprofit boards are great resources because a lot of those people have served on other boards as well. So they bring that knowledge and maybe some resources. So yeah, I would just say referrals and go to the media. I mean, those are the people who you're ultimately trying to reach. So reach out to some reporters, and if you know them, if you don't, reach out to them and say, can we meet? And this is what we're trying to do. I'm not pitching you a story. I'm just looking for advice about what gets your attention. And decide, sort of pick one. I mean, like, do you want to be on television? You want to be on the radio? You want to be in the newspaper? Where do you want to be? I mean, you want to be everywhere ultimately, but you got to start someplace. And, where's your best audience going to be? And just reach out and say, we'd just like to have a conversation with you and ask what's the best way to go about this. I also say, I mean, I grew up in a PR culture where, the Chiefs weren't looking for attention. We had attention. I mean, it was, we were managing the attention that we were getting. And it was also sort of the infancy of sports talk radio and 24 hours news cycles and ESPN and all of these things were sort of happening. So the demand for content, which some people don't like that word, but the demand was a lot, and how to manage that. And PR and the press were sort of regarded as enemies. I mean, that they were.
I don't think that's necessarily changed either.
Right. I mean, that there's sometimes this your reporting is bad and we're trying to correct it, or we didn't like what you said and we don't, whatever. But I always say, you can't just call. It's like, it's like your mom or your best friend. You can't just call when you need something. You have to call and say, hey, you know what? I was just checking, see how you're doing, what's up. I mean, like, you don't always have to be asking for something when you call. Just, touch base with your reporter friends, the news desk people, the editors, whomever you're talking to in the kind of mainstream traditional media, your podcast hosts, your bloggers, your Substackers, whoever it is. I mean, just touch base once in a while and be like, hey, just checking in, see what's going on, what's new. I mean, they're people too.
Absolutely. Before we run out of time, there's so much to talk about, but one thing I think that's interesting for trying to garner PR is then how to show results, because it's not the same as when you buy an ad and you put a QR code, et cetera. So how could you advise nonprofits to be able to show, that earned what they're doing?
Yeah.
To the boss who says, go do it.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly that data is available. I mean, my little firm, we're not, we don't have use those types of tracking systems, but there are firms in town that certainly do. I mean, they can tell you exactly, how many views something got, not just, social media, but, the reach of a story on the news or in the newspaper or whatever. I mean, there's certainly data to be collected that can give you those results. And, surveying your donors, I mean, surveying the people who receive your services, how not only does PR help you to benefit maybe, sort of in terms of reputation and resources as a nonprofit, it also helps you to make your services available, known to people who need them. So that's another very important part of it is, reaching people who need your help and your support. And just, doing some regular surveying is sometimes helpful. Some interviews with, the people that you serve. There's all kinds of ways, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely tracking for, how well a story did in the media.
If you don't have those tools, I know some folks just make sure they capture where something landed, and if that's the station with the top ratings or readership or clicks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
What is the one big mistake folks make with PR? And what advice would you provide so you don't make it?
They think it's advertising. I mean, that's what I think is probably the hardest part is, or something that people maybe don't understand or get confused. They think it's the same as, or that people who are creating your brand and developing your brand are the same people who are telling your story. And, it's a slight difference, but it's a big one. I also think that often, because, trying to conserve resources, it's like, it's something that looks easy, I guess I would say. It's like, well, what's the big deal? Just call some reporters and tell them we're doing this thing. And they tend, and, I've been involved with organizations. I mean, they're handing this over to a summer intern and that's just, it's something that you have to invest in. You may not have to invest in a full-time employee to do that, or have engage in a contract with a PR firm. But you should dedicate some resources to it, whether it's through a consultant, a retainer with a firm, especially if you're, ever, God forbid, have some sort of a crisis. And now you definitely need somebody to talk to the media for you because something unplanned and not great happened.
Right.
So I would say, it does require some investment of time and resources and some patience to develop those relationships.
Eileen, this has been great. Such great information. Folks, listen to this lady. She knows what she's talking about. And it isn't always easy. And I'm glad you pointed out that, it's hard to garner that. It's a big world. And as you mentioned, there's so many more channels now. So thank you for your time and your great expertise.
Thank you. It's great to see you.
Thank you for joining us for Casey Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice, and we're produced by a nonprofit, Charitable Communications. This Casey Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing, Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. Now, if you'd like to be a guest, you can check out our website, caseycaresonline.org, and spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at Casey Cares Radio and on Instagram at Casey Cares Online. And don't forget, on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., you can catch us on ESPN 1510 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Thanks for joining us on Casey Cares.